Well, welcome everyone to the Yosan University 39 Gen podcast. My name's Sean, and I'm hosting this episode today. And I have a really interesting guest with me. Now, would you like to tell people who you are and a little bit about your background and what you do?
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, my name is Deirdre Courtney, and
yeah,
I am a doctor of Chinese medicine. I'm actually one of the first students of Yosan University.
that's awesome.
I started in the first class ever. And
Wow,
I did my master's and graduated in 92. I know I finished my national a year before I did my master's, so was already working in Colorado when I was doing my master's
really?
in Yosan. Yeah, I came from food. I was a chef by profession. And
Really?
I was working in California at the time, and working in restaurants is very stressful. So I was doing some
Yes.
private work for one of the Beach Boys. And we used to go to his nutritionist for her to advise me what to be cooking and what not to be cooking. And I knew an awful lot about food, and I was self-taught about nutrition and stuff.
Yes.
And I thought to myself, maybe it might be nice to do something like that instead of cooking all the time and running households. So I investigated. I didn't want to be a dietitian or go down the western route because I didn't follow any of that principles. And so somebody recommended Yosan. They said this school was starting up and told me about Mao, and Mao had written a book on Chinese nutrition. And then I started going there, yeah, and I've been a practitioner for 30 something years. There
That's
we
awesome.
are. Yeah.
That's really
So,
awesome.
but food is a big part for me because I came from food, and then food was the area like the nutrition, Chinese nutrition, but also the herbal medicine is like food. So when you're making up your
Yes.
formulas, it's like making up little, recipes. So I love
I,
that part.
I love that description. One of the things that I didn't realize until I moved back to Asia was that so many of the herbs are food. Are foods.
Yes.
There are so many of them that are foods. You know, you look at the Buddha's palm. Right now, I see them lining the streets. They're selling them
Yeah.
everywhere because it's something that they sell um, during the Lunar New Year festival here in Vietnam.
That's right.
You know,
Yes.
chenpi is literally, the peel of a mandarin orange. And there are so many of these foods.
Yeah.
We eat hat sen, the lotus blossoms as well here. It's just a
Yeah.
food that's eaten regularly.
Well,
And
rice, millet,
rice,
quinoa,
yep,
you know,
mm-hmm,
um, yeah, cloves,
yep,
um, ginger. There's a vast amount of it. Yes, it is food, and
yep,
it needs to be. Yeah, you've got different levels.
right.
Yeah, very
And that's
good.
the
Yeah, and
beauty.
it's actually because of the Chinese New Year as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of foods that they consider lucky foods as well, don't they?
Yes.
Do they do that in
Yes,
Vietnam?
yes, for sure, for sure.
Okay.
There's all types of foods that are lucky. There's all types of things that are eaten that are auspicious, and things that are
Uh-huh.
shared for good luck and such. And it's really cool to see it
Oh,
in
good. Yeah,
play.
yeah. Very
Now,
good.
as you started to get into this, and you started to look at, very interesting path, coming from food
Hmm.
into the medicine. Were there any challenges for you coming from food moving into Chinese medicine?
Mm, there was, there was challenges the same as anybody. Like I come from Ireland, and Ireland would have been very backward in comparison to California. People were much
Mhm.
more open. Like if I when I came back to Ireland on holidays, people just thought I was doing something crazy. So it was that
Yeah.
sort of, it was a different language, it was a different way of looking at the world. It was very out there compared to what I grew up with. And so there was challenges within learning that language, and changing that way how you saw the world, and moved in. So that was a challenge for me. I'm also very dyslexic, and so it was a
Mm.
challenge within examinations because I read things backwards or I miss the middle of
Interesting.
things, and so I struggled with that. But I loved doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
memorization, I was never able to read and understand what I was reading at the same time. So what I used to do was do recordings, and I'd play them back, or I'd make cards, and I was still cooking as a chef, and I used to put them in front of me, and one side would be the name of the herb or the point, and the other side would be the action or whatever. So whatever
Yes.
side I picked up, I had to think, what point is that, or what herb is that, or what does it do? So I had to work really hard to get where I got. But it was
Yeah.
yeah, I was passionate about it, so it was great. And then the
That's awesome.
nutrition end of it was just fabulous. I mean, I loved Ma was my teacher, and it was great, you know. Yeah.
Talk to me. What was it like working with Dr. Mao and diving into the nutrition portion?
Well, you know, it was great. I mean, to have, I don't know if Dashing and Mashing are still teaching some of the
Yeah.
classes, but they were some of our main teachers. And so,
Yeah.
they had such a knowledge, and, but really had a great way of, like, I didn't struggle with the information they were giving me. I
Yeah.
mean, Mao was great at relating the information in a way that you could grasp it. And so, yes, it was really great to do that, and then to be able to then apply that in the clinics, whether
Yeah.
it was the herbal medicine or recommending the food. I mean, food became a big part of my practice, and uh, doing nutrition. I did it with everybody. Everybody did, got some dietary advice. And then over the
Yeah.
years, I kind of got caught up in other aspects of the medicine, and I kind of let that go a little bit. But then I brought it back in again, because I realized that there's no point if people are not changing what they're doing in their life,
Yeah.
whether it's their food, their lifestyle, their attitudes, or whatever it is, they're not going to fully recover, or they're not going to get to
Yes.
the place where they need to get to. So yeah, I went back to it, and I did write a book about a yang shang, which is to do with nurturing life, and the majority of it, the most part of it, is on nutrition. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome because I feel like I remember once that I was in a family member had um, some heart issues and they ended up getting a bypass and they already were actually they took care of themselves. But in their recovery, when they were speaking with the doctor one day, they spoke with them about diet and such, and the doctor looked at them and said, so many of these patients that I'm treating right now will be back here. Will be back
Mm,
here for other problems, other things, because they're
yeah.
not addressing the root cause. The root cause is that they're eating themselves to death. And
Mm,
can you work with a patient to see what you put into your what you eat is what makes you up.
yeah.
There was a crazy fact that I read that like every 7 years, almost every atom in your body is changed. From what we
Yeah.
consume, the air we
Yeah.
breathe. Like what is the building block the building blocks that you are giving your body? I think it's we
Yeah.
forget that.
And when you think about our medicine, I mean, what I loved about our medicine when I first started, what I still love about it is our medicine is about getting to the source of why somebody's out of balance. We're not just treating a
Yes.
symptom. We're
No.
actually treating the individual. We're looking at the person in the complete form, their work, their
Yeah.
relationships, their lifestyle, their food, their everything. It's a big picture. And it's always about going to the core. What is the core of the issue? Sometimes I had a very simple one time. I had some guy come into me who had terrible insomnia, and he was saying, like, I wake up early and I wake up tired, and I feel like fatigued when I wake up. And so I'm kind of going through his consultation and everything. He seemed fairly good. And then I asked him about his diet, and I said to him, do you eat a lot of sugar? And he goes, no, but I like to have a bit of chocolate when I'm in bed reading my book. And I said, okay, stop doing that. And
Yeah.
he texted me about 4 days later and said, since I stopped doing it, I'm sleeping all the time. But he was eating the sugar just in bed, and then his whole blood sugars were going crazy. So, of course, he was waking up tired. But it was as simple as that. He didn't need loads of herbs, he didn't need loads of acupuncture, he just needed to shift something. And a lot of
Yes.
times that's, yeah, that's all some people need to do. It's not a big thing. Yeah. Yeah.
I loved the study of Tai Chi, and I'm a black belt in judo. And one of the
Okay.
things that you learn in judo is that to throw someone, the first thing you have to do is off balance them. If you can get a
Yes.
person tilted out, overextended,
Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah,
fall extremely easily. It's not difficult to topple a giant mountain of a person
yeah,
if you simply know where to apply leverage. And and that always comes back to me. I remember once that when I was in the clinic, we had a very big guy. Had to, I think he was ex football player, and he was 2 meters tall. He was a big man, and they got him on the table, and he passed right out. And and like they
yeah,
had to pull needles, and it was one of the things. It was just all of this yang energy, and then
yeah,
suddenly it just was so much that boom, he collapsed, bounced
yeah,
right back, and he can't started coming in regularly, and the treatments were giving him a great benefit, and he was feeling awesome.
yeah,
But that first time he came in,
yeah,
like
yeah.
he just had
Just
he
thrown
was
off.
he threw got thrown off. And it's interesting to
Yeah,
see that
yeah,
it takes time, but you can
yeah,
help people return to balance if you are patient.
yeah, yeah. And you have to really. I mean, I think in America and certain parts of America, it's more accepted. I mean, it's becoming more accepted here, but you really have to kind of educate people to realize that it's not a quick fix. It takes
Yes.
years to go out of balance, and you have to give the body a bit of time to get back into balance. So there is,
Yes.
you have to, stick with it for a period of time. And it's getting people to stick with it can be the challenging bit, I find, is just getting that, people to keep going that little bit further. But I think as you get
Well,
older and you're more in the medicine, I mean, I've been doing it a long time. I've got a lot of more confidence in my medicine and my ability and what I can do and what I can't do. So it's easier for me. But I see that as a struggle with students coming up as well. So it's hard.
what do you do to keep patients coming back, to keep patients, to continue treatment?
I don't know. They seem to like
That's
me.
an awesome answer.
Um, I've never advertised. I've built my practice on word of mouth. And so, like, even though right now I'm not taking on any new patients and haven't been since October, I have a waiting list of people who say that if something comes up, let me know. Because I think, I was one of the first herbalists, Chinese herbalists and practitioner here in Ireland when I came back. And the education that I would have had at Yosan in California would have been completely different from even the education that people have here now. Now, people
Yeah.
are incredible practitioners, but I think a lot of what has made them great practitioners is they're after their schooling, the studies they do, what they continue to
Yeah.
learn. And, that's always encouraged in all areas. But I don't know. I think first of all, I don't put a lot of demands. Like I used to be very strict about people's diet and you have to give up this and have to give up that. I don't do that anymore. I realize that,
Yeah.
little changes are better than no changes. And that when people put everything into changing and doing something a particular way, if they fail at it, then they're beating themselves up. So I'm
Yes.
overwhelming them already and setting them up. So I'm much more work with people on the thing. I think the other thing as well is I see people. I
Yeah.
studied face reading. I don't know if you've ever heard of Lillian Bridges, but I
I
started working
have.
with Lillian Bridges when in 1999. And then I started teaching with her. I studied with her and then was teaching. And then I ran her school with another colleague, Kelly Harrington, up until she passed away 3 years ago. And so with the face reading, you are looking at the person. So when you're looking at the face and you're doing your consultation, the spirit would be the main thing for me. I watch the
Okay.
spirit and I see when it's present and when it's flickering away, or, how is it reacting to a question. And then I can actually start
Ooh.
to see the
Ooh.
real person. So I go right to the core a lot of times with people. And I think because they see that I see them, there's a comfort in that. I don't know, actually. But yeah, I I tell people up front what I feel I can or can't do. I try to be as honest as possible about their treatment and what I think I can help them with. And then yeah, I just work with them. I don't know. Got my own gig, I suppose.
That's awesome.
uh, yeah.
One of the things that you pointed on there that I wanted to tap on and ask more about as well, and I think is so important in life and in general. I for a long time, while I lived in Asia, I've worked in media and entertainment, but I also had a side gig of teaching English to children. And it was just a very simple way to get some extra money, and it was something I enjoyed. I'm not going to say it was just about money. I actually really enjoyed working with kids. But one of the things that you see is so important for people, and you learn it especially from
Mm,
children. And we have that same need as adults, but we kind of bury it or we forget about it. People need to be
mm.
seen. They need to
They need to
be
be seen.
really,
Yeah.
they need to be seen. You know, when a
Yeah.
child comes up to you and says, I don't understand this. Can you help me? You can be distracted. You can be, or you can sit there and go,
Yeah.
yes, yes, I can. Let's
And
look
you
at
have
that.
to work at their level. You have to come
Yes.
to where they can go. I mean, with the diet stuff, for instance, is a classic way of explaining it, is that if somebody comes in, I ask them after the first visit, I say, next time you come, bring 3 days inventory of everything you eat and drink. Do not be good. If you go out to dinner, include that as well. There's a couple of things. I can see where they're getting their nutrients from, what they're getting
Yep.
of and what they're not. But I can also see, do they cook? Do they buy
Yeah.
ready-made food? At what level can they cook? Do they even know what quinoa is as opposed to mashed potato? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I can work with them and their diet based on what they can do. So if somebody only buys ready-made food and jars, I can then direct them into better quality ready-made foods. As opposed to
Yes.
saying, no, you have to make your tomato sauce by scratch. No, there are good products out there. And then they suddenly feel empowered that they actually have some
Yes.
control and it's not this big daunting thing. So I approach that on every level with the herbs, with the treatments, with their lifestyle changes, like whatever it is they need to do. I kind of figure out what they can do and what would you want to do, and let's see about doing that, as opposed to you should be doing this and you've got to do this.
Yes.
I just, yeah, and that that didn't happen overnight. That has
No.
evolved for me as a practitioner. Yeah, because people
It
are sick
takes
and they're overwhelmed. They're
right.
so overwhelmed. Yeah.
There's so and you think about this, right? Every year on December 30th, or at the end of the year, January 1st was what I was trying to say. Every year on January 1st, people line up at the gym and they go in and they're like, I'm going to get in shape. And they sign up for personal trainers. And I
Mhm.
love personal trainers,
Mm.
but quite often they take them in and they're like, all right, let's hit these weights. And this happened to my wife so many times. She'll get a personal trainer. She goes and works out with them. And then 2 days later, she's like, I can't walk. And like, she doesn't
Yeah.
want to go back to the gym. And, instead of taking people where they're at and saying,
Yeah.
let's take, you're here. Okay. Tomorrow,
Yeah.
let's go here. And that is a
Yeah.
win. If you go from here to
Yeah.
here, that's a win. People forget that
Yeah.
everyone wants to be here, right? Certainly, I would love to be a triathlete. That would be amazing and fun. If that's your goal, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're not there, maybe walking down the block is a good start.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you
20
have to see where
minutes three
people are.
times a week is really
Yes.
good. But it's also about, you know, it's also about helping people make changes that are sustainable. Like whatever
Yes.
changes, I try to say that to my patients, whatever changes we're going to make here, you're going to try and make, should be changes that stay with you, that are easy for you to
Yes.
maintain, because you don't want to go back. But you don't have to give up all everything. You just have to
No.
shift the balance of it. Like if you're eating like some good food and some bad food, just eat more good foods than bad foods. Like I
Yes.
work, yeah. So I think it has to be sustainable in long term to maintain that health. So yeah, yeah,
I agree.
it's yeah, it's good.
No, you're preaching to the choir. I love this. I want to ask you about your face reading. This is
Yeah.
fascinating. How do you do this? I mean, because you've been teaching this. How does someone approach
Yeah.
face reading? And what is
Well,
it, and
there's
how do you
lots
do
of
it?
yeah. So there's different areas of face reading. My
Okay.
specialty would be diagnosis, and that's because I am a practitioner and I can see the faces and I can see signs on the faces, and then I can do my consultation and confirm the stuff I'm seeing. And there is a lot of stuff that we do see on the face to do with facial diagnosis that certain aspects of that Western medicine also recognizes as, you know, things they see. You know what I mean? They wouldn't
Interesting.
use it necessarily diagnostically, but they do recognize, yes, we also see these similar things, like a blood pressure line on the lobe of the ear. Then the other
Interesting.
aspects of it is when we when you so each of the areas of the face, it's a microsystem, so you have the
Yes.
five elements on the face. So within the five elements you have the organs, so
Mm-hmm.
you can see where certain, like the chin and under the eyes, would be related to the kidneys. So you see a lot of
Interesting.
activity or redness or different things. It can be to do with the bladder, the kidney, or it could be to do with the will, the spirit. You know, the
Yes.
uh, overwhelm, somebody being overwhelmed or fearful or something like that. So you can see certain organs in the face, but also the different shapes of our face, the shapes of our eyebrows, the shapes of our eyes, the length of our eyebrows, the width of our mouth, the fullness of our lips. That all of those say something about somebody's personality, or how
Yes.
they function, or how they work with things, or how they yeah. So you can see certain personal things in somebody, like what somebody would be really good at. Is somebody a deep thinker? Do they think linearly, or are they more creative in their thinking? Is somebody, like a lot of activists have a strong jaw, and the jaw is related
Interesting.
to the wood element, and the wood is the root of the trees. The jaw is the root of the tree. So they get their teeth into something they believe in and they'll fight for it. And so you see a lot of activists with that, you know,
Yes.
strong jaw. And sometimes it can be the environment, and sometimes it can be their community or within their
Yeah.
family. It doesn't have to be some grandiose thing. But also, we also recognize that when we overuse or underuse certain emotions, that it marks our face. And so a lot of our
Interesting.
lines and wrinkles on the face are related to held emotions or overused emotions. And what you do is you look at those when the
Yep.
person is not using that expression. And if those lines are there, if smile lines are there when somebody's not smiling, that means they smile a lot. And now their lines are permanently there. So you can see where some of the emotional components are in, you know, being held, which we know in Chinese medicine has a direct effect on our our health. So
Yes.
it's
That's so
yeah. So
fascinating.
there's many different aspects.
So,
We match make, and you can, yeah, see different things. Yeah,
no,
it's
that's
a really
awesome. That's awesome.
fascinating area.
I'm
Fascinating
not gonna
area.
lie. This whole time that you're talking, I'm listening and I'm staring at my face, going, "What does it mean?" So it's very
Well,
interesting.
see, your
It
face in the picture I have
I'm
of
sorry.
you is
Yeah.
blurred, so I can't see your face very
Right.
well. I can,
Yeah.
yeah, I
It's
can only
not
see
so
my
clear.
own.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting that one thing is I noticed is after a couple years ago, I had a really bad virus, and it was like a swine flu, and it went in and affected
Uh-huh.
systemic, and it was very, very Shanghai. So it was very interesting to watch. As even though I was really sick, I was watching it go through the layers, and it just took me a while to kind of clear out this cold pathogen. But one of the things afterwards, my beard and mustache turned white, and so
Oh wow.
it was just like this
Okay.
very
Yeah.
big shock, and I was like, "Ooh, is that some essence that was depleted there?" You know, it's fascinating to
Yeah,
me.
yeah, very much so. And
Yeah,
that's, the hair on the body is related to the lungs. Um,
interesting,
so yeah,
interesting.
so we often see when somebody's gone through a lot of chronic illness or colds or the COVID
Yeah,
even. They get very sunken in their cheek area because this is where we see
interesting,
metal. This is the lungs, and so we can
interesting.
see yeah, autoimmune things there as well. When somebody's immune
The
system is down, so you'd look at lung and kidney. Yeah. Yeah,
Oh
so
wow, see
there's
that's
an awful
fascinating.
lot that you can see. It's actually quite interesting when you start to learn a little bit about it. You start to see, you start to be able to see things straight away because it's a visual thing. You can see the face. It is, but the face is related to what Lillian would refer to as the golden path. It's our Ming, it's our destiny. And we're given the face that we need to get us through our life to fulfill our Ming, to fulfill our destiny.
Ooh,
And so
interesting.
we have the nose, we have the chin, we have the jaw, we have the forehead, we have whatever we need in order for us to get to survive through the life, because everybody's experience in life is very different and we need different tools to survive or to express ourselves or whatever. So our face is that. And if you Lillian would break down the Tao, the characters, as a face running on a path. It's
Interesting.
actually, yeah, like the old character. So the characters of that. So you can see that it is that our Ming, our destiny is here. We have what we need. So I always feel bad when, like, particularly women who have really strong noses and they get them made smaller. They're so
Yeah.
disempowering themselves in a way, because a strong nose is somebody who is a pioneer, who is a forward thinker, who's a leader instead of a follower, depending on the shape of the nose and if there's a bump and different things. But the further off the face it comes, the more independent that person would be work-wise. Would be they even if they worked in a big corporation, they'd still need to be in charge of a section of it, or have their own team. They would be the thing, and it's a very powerful part of the face. It's also
That's
around the age 40. So we also break it down into ages, and we can see what's going on at different ages and whether you're coming into a good decade, or, what the yin period of a yang period. And so, yeah, there's
that's
many
fascinating.
layers to it. Yeah, yeah.
That's
It's
fascinating. Yeah, I feel like we
fascinating.
are
Never look
just
at a
brushing
face
the
the same
surface.
way again. Sorry.
Never.
Yeah,
No, that's awesome. Just brushing the surface of this too. This is fascinating.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
what took you and it made you go, hey, I want this is something I want to study. How did you really get into it?
Yeah, well, it was like, well, for start, I never wanted to study Chinese medicine. I wanted to do nutrition, and I had to because there was something to do with the legal things in California. I needed to start taking classes when the school started, so I'd be grandfathered in to continue because I wasn't from there and all of this. And so here I am doing Chinese medicine. It wasn't my plan either. But what was interesting was I used to teach facial rejuvenation and facial acupuncture
Interesting.
to practitioners here when I came back from America. And some of the students would, use some parts of the face would rejuvenate very easily and other parts wouldn't. And then I started a little institute to bring teachers from, because Ireland is very small, so you always had to go to England or go to Europe to hear some top speakers. So
Yeah.
with another colleague, we started inviting speakers to come to Ireland, and we would host them. And so one of the people I invited was Lillian. I heard she
Yeah.
did this space reading, and I thought, okay, this could be interesting. And it was actually in that class that I understood why this one particular uh, student's patient area here was not recovering, was not softening and rejuvenating compared to the rest of the face, was had a lot to do with her um, over nurturing other people at her expense and giving her
Interesting.
own energy away. So she wasn't feeding herself. And this is the area of creativity. And so I suddenly started to click, and I started to realize when I was doing these treatments and and I started to ask questions then, about things I'd see on the face and find out, is there something to do emotionally with those lines and wrinkles? And then it just evolved from there. And then, you just have a different spin on when you're looking at a face. But
Very
that's how I got
interesting.
into it, was through that. And I just, Lillian and myself became friends. And then we started doing some teaching together. And then she asked me to help her run her program. And yeah, I just was in every class she taught on it, basically. So
That's
by
awesome.
default, I learned about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
I
amazing. Yeah.
if you could go back in time and you were to do your studies again, what would you change with knowing what you know now?
What would I change? Okay, that's a very interesting. Um, I don't know if I would change anything, to be honest,
I love
because
that.
it sort of all evolved in the way it was meant to evolve, or
Yeah.
um, I mean, I do. I think I would have gone back to Ireland. Back to America. I have thought about doing that. One of the things here is very hard because not many people. At the time I came back, there was nobody really doing the herbal medicine. So I
Mm.
wished I had more. Had done more of that, but I did it myself. I have my pharmacy here in my clinic, and I have about 190 herbs, and I
That's
still
awesome.
make formulas, but it's not as busy as it could be, if
Yeah.
people prefer pills. So, and I don't really care for the pills as much. But I don't think I would change anything because I've evolved, and it's evolved in its own in the right way for me, I guess. I mean, I love the teaching. I mean, that's a big part of what I do now. Is I do a lot of teaching, and I teach in different areas of my medicine, but yeah, no, I don't think I would change anything.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
advice would you give to new students, new practitioners coming up in this field?
Yeah, see, I'd say it'd be very different again. I think start straight away. I know here in Ireland, a lot of people, when they graduate, they sometimes are nervous. We don't have the clinical experience. They don't have clinics here in the same way that you do at Yosan and in California. But people kind of are a bit nervous to start. And the longer they leave just getting in there and starting a
Hmm.
practice, the harder it becomes. So I would say start straight away. And if you can get, work with somebody even one day a week where you can get some experience working with somebody who is already in practice, that's always a very valuable thing. I mean, that was hard for me here because um, when I came back here, there was I didn't know anybody, so I had no mentor here. So I was very
Wow.
much isolated on my own. And then because I had a master's and people didn't even, you know, we didn't even have a degree thing here really. People kind of then looked to me as if I was the expert, just
Yeah.
because I had this master's, but I had no experience except what as a student. So, but I did. I did go to for a year to Colorado to work with my acupuncture teacher Jim Scoyne, who had a practice there, and he was meant to be going away, and he didn't. So I ended up working with him for about 9 months, and that was a great experience for me. So I think that's a really good thing. Go and find somebody if you can that will allow you to, but you want to be treating. You want
Yeah,
somebody who let you treat, and not you're not just shadowing them. Yeah, and
that's
I
awesome.
don't know. I wouldn't. Yeah, just find the area you like. Pay attention to the type of people who come to you. What are their conditions? There's something, we have an energy and we draw that energy to us. So we attract that kind of patient that we have the ability to hold a space for. And so we have to trust that as well, that people will come to us that need us, and that when that's done, then they go somewhere else, and that there is
Yeah.
that, yeah, trust yourself, I suppose. Yeah.
What type of patients have you been attracting?
Well, it's changed over the years. There was a period of time where I got a lot of people coming on who had gynecological problems, and I did a lot of work on that. And then and fertility and all of that is very big here. It's an area that a lot of people go into. So, and before that, I was one of the few people who treated children. So I did a lot of
Mm.
pediatrics, and so I attracted. But now, so going back, it's hard to think back, but now I work people emotionally. Mostly, I get a lot of people. They might have different conditions and ailments, but really the core is the emotional components. And for me, the Shen and the spirit, is the most important thing. So it's the first thing I engage with when, as I said before, when a patient comes in, I'm watching their eyes, I'm watching their body language, I'm watching their spirit, and I'm engaging. I'm trying to engage with the spirit as much as I can. And my treatments that I do a lot of spirit points, and I use a lot of yeah, I try to connect to that. So I think I get a lot of people who are open to that energetically. They're at a level where they recognize that spirit is important, and that getting grounded in the body and being present is part of the healing process.
I love
So
that.
I get a lot of yeah. Um, I get a lot of different conditions, but that would be where I would be seeing the focus is, yeah, bringing people. It's a crazy world out there. We need to be
Yes.
strong in our bodies, and sometimes it's uncomfortable to be in our body and to be present.
Yes.
And there's moments where we want to just step outside of that, but then we have to be careful that we don't step out of our body too much, and that we're not able to come back and be present and aware. And I do think things like meditation and is really important, because I think it's really important that we are still, and that we have those moments where we calm our minds, and that takes practice in. And so I encourage, yeah, I work a lot with the spirit, really. Yeah.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. Well, I want to thank you for giving us this wisdom drop today. It's been amazing, and
I hope it was
yeah, I would.
okay. Yeah.
No, it was awesome. I'd love to have you back on sometime. You got me now. Every time I talk to people on these podcasts, I come in understanding, having read the bio, people's bios and such. But then when people start opening and unpacking the stuff that is before that, just
Yeah.
a note on a biography, it's like, wow, now that's interesting. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
but you have to take the
We
time to
all have
listen.
our journeys.
Yes, we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Yes,
But
we
we have
do.
a beautiful medicine, and our medicine is so valuable now more than ever, I think, for the world.